Good afternoon, Jan. Oh, goodness, that's a weird angle. There we go, that's better.
Michael, good morning.
How you doing? I think
Doing
Biscuits
fine.
has been up here and moving my monitors around.
Hmm. I made it in time.
Excellent, excellent.
I sent you a little mail because I thought perhaps I wouldn't make it in time, but I
Oh,
did.
okay, I didn't see that yet.
So, okay,
Yeah,
never
I
mind.
did see the merge. So you had merged uh, AutoFac into your branch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did make a little bit progress, but still on the model this week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this morning I wanted to continue a little bit, but okay, my daughter decided otherwise.
Ah, yes.
But
Yeah,
okay,
they have their way.
yeah. But So I still merged AutoFac into that. I've been a little bit looking into AutoFac to have some deeper understanding, but still need a little bit time. Um, Let me see for the model because I just restarted the virtual machine here. Um, let's see, and because I switched off everything. Um, okay. I think perhaps the best thing is to go to Notebook. Can I show you? Can I share Notebook?
Sure, yes, let's do that.
Okay. But then I will have to make this screen a little bit smaller. Oh, that's gonna be too big to be visible, I think. Right, let's already tried that. Where is that screen? This one. Make it a little bit more.
There we go. It's getting better.
I think like that it should be readable, is it?
Yes, yeah, that looks good.
Okay. So here we have the commit branch, so the workers, that was from 2 weeks ago, I think. We added a restore that was from 2 weeks or last week. Then we synced the notebook with the .NET model that was also long ago.
Mm-hmm.
Tool approved also. And then last week, I think we changed the model that yards depend directly on supplier.
Yes, yes, I remember that.
Okay, and I think then we started here with the tool where we added the creator. So for the tool, we need to know who was the creator.
Mm-hmm.
So we added that to the model and the description. Then that's the new stuff, the consumables. Let's start there.
Yeah.
So I added consumables, I added units, then I updated and extended tasks, and then just visualization for the entire model. So let's see, have a look first at consumables. Go here, close that one. Here we have the users, the dispatchers, the workers, the clients, the yards, the tools. Was there something I added here? I changed it, but we discussed about that last week already. Consumable. So a tool is something that the worker will use to accomplish the task.
Mm-hmm.
And a consumable is a product that he consumes to accomplish the task. For example, fertilizer.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So a consumable belongs to a supplier. It's very similar to a tool. Yeah, so the explanation is the same.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that we need to specify the quantity
Got it. Yeah.
of the consumable. For example, it could be 3 cubic meter of sand
Mm-hmm.
or 300 liter of fertilizer, things like that. So it's
Yeah.
very similar. We have just a consumable fact, we have a delete, we have a restore, we have a name, and we have an approved. So that's
Mm-hmm.
identical to a tool.
Right, and that's just the kind of the master list of consumable. It's not that's not yet allocating it to a task.
That's just the master list,
Yeah.
just like we use with tools. But then later on, when we create the task, we will have to store how many of them
Mm-hmm.
we have to bring. And when the job is done, the worker will have to register how many of it he
Mm-hmm.
has effectively used.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes
Hmm?
sense.
So we need a unit. And I guess units will be used for multiple things. So here we can have, for example, pieces, we can have meters, kilometers for consumables not, but we might need them elsewhere,
Mm-hmm.
liters, cubic meter. So as not all units are needed everywhere, we need a kind of filter.
Hmm. Interesting.
So what I propose is to have a successor fact, and in this case, the fact will be used for consumables.
Oh, okay. I see.
So all
Hmm.
the units, all the unit facts which have a successor fact used for consumables will show up in the unit dialog in the consumable screen.
Hmm. Okay.
You might have, for example, another screen which is working time. And there you might have a unit hours, minute, seconds, and so, but you don't need kilometer for working time. So
Right.
you only
Right.
need hours, seconds, minutes, or days. So there you could have a successor flag, which is called use for working time.
Okay. Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
that way, I only need to have one list of units, which is filtered by a simple query according to the flag that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that a good solution, or do you see?
Yeah. It strikes me that this is yeah, this is maybe relying on facts too much. It's a little heavy for units. Um, so, for example, you've modeled mutable property for the unit name and abbreviation, but it seems like that would never change. That you're not going to rename meters to something else and have it still mean the same thing. Um, so I'm wondering if simply modeling this
Um,
as a string or a pair of strings um, wouldn't be a better solution.
yeah, unless, for example, the software is used in Belgium, where half of
Oh.
the people speak Flemish and the other half speak French.
Mm-hmm.
In the translation,
I see.
um, so that
Okay.
might already be. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So this unit name doesn't have translation built into it. But yeah, maybe something a little bit more complicated than simply string, uh, but yeah, still a record that's not a fact, and the identity is still some kind of a well-known string. Um, so yeah, I'm thinking maybe the SI unit as the identifier of that fact, not even a fact, the identifier, kind of the key in this table. So
yeah,
imagine a dictionary by string. That's the SI unit, and then uh, the values in that dictionary are the various translations of unit name and abbreviation.
and then store the whole dictionary in a single fact.
No, I'm thinking that dictionary is just part of the application. Um, so when you uh, when you actually assign a consumable, yeah, yeah, it would be in your consumable definition that you provide the string that's the key, and so
Yeah,
that's not even represented inside of the model because it's not a thing that changes all the time and that you would want to synchronize, but instead it's just this uh, this consumable is measured in cubic meters, and so um, you've got M3 as the unit string inside of that consumable, but then you look that up whenever you render the user interface and say, okay, this person wants the Flemish translation of
mm,
that unit, and so I will show that long name and that short name
yeah.
for M3.
Because what we could do is hard code, in fact, in the application, the full SI table,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also other units. For example, uh, pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Pieces is still a common number, but I don't think it belongs to the SI
No.
table. It's not standardized.
Yeah.
But I can imagine, what is it called? The thing with two handles and a wheel. Is it a shuffle? No?
Are you?
Um,
Oh, a wheelbarrow.
a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps some of my customers will even count in wheelbarrows,
Uh-huh.
a wheelbarrow of sand. I don't know. I
Uh-huh.
don't know. Um,
Okay,
or
but that's
bags or
okay. That's
so.
that's a
It,
good point. You said your customers might choose that, and so
yeah.
that's what makes it a fact. Whereas if it was hard coded, your customers wouldn't be able to choose what their units are.
Well, the problem is I can make a list now,
Mm-hmm.
but at certain moments my customers will say, "Oh, you have to add this or you have to add that,"
Mm-hmm.
and then I have to make a new software version. So this type
Mm-hmm.
of things, I like them to be in the database where I can just add units, and
Got
they
it.
should be synchronized. That's why I put them in the model.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Um,
Okay.
and the number of unit is not extremely high, so it
Mm-hmm.
will be number of facts additional.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Um, but compared to the to the number of facts because of the application,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep. Yep. Okay, that's
I
true.
didn't foresee anything to delete the units because the filter
Mm.
the filter allows in fact for deletion.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. So used for consumables. I see it only has the unit as a predecessor. So what is the yeah? So that's how do you indicate which consumables use which units?
Um, no, so when the dispatcher makes a task, he will have a screen where he can select all the consumables available for this supplier,
Mm-hmm.
and then he will have to fill in the amount and choose the unit.
Okay. Okay. So it chooses at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't want, for example, hours
Mm-hmm.
as a unit is not good for consumables.
Right.
So it's confusing if we put the unit hours in the list.
Okay. Okay. So this is all units, whether they are for consumables or not.
Yeah.
And
So
then
that's my standard table of units, which I can use for consumables. So the ones that
mm,
have a use for consumable flags will be shown in the consumable screen.
okay.
The ones that have use for work registration they will be shown in that screen.
Okay. So you'll have a different use for work registration uh, fact that filters those?
Yeah. So I
Okay.
will have, there is not only use for consumables as a flag,
Mm-hmm.
but there will be a fact used for work hours registration, and probably for many more things which I don't know yet.
Okay.
But so for every application, we will add a flag, a fact, a successive fact
Mm-hmm.
to filter the units that we need for that uh,
Right.
application.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I'm thinking through. So I'm thinking about the advantage or disadvantage of having multiple unit types. So so another way that you can filter a specification is by type. So you're only looking for the consumable unit successors of the supplier. Um, uh, the the thing that this model does that that model would not is that you could use a unit for two different things.
Mhm.
And it would be the same unit, not just a copy or a different unit with the same name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'm wondering if that's an important distinction, if there's something useful there. So, um, yeah, for work, you're looking for units of time. So that's the thing that you're measuring.
Mhm.
I might be overgeneralizing, but and then for consumables, you're looking for units of volume or weight or pieces. A few other dimensions like
Mhm.
that.
For example, there might be a screen that they use when they go to fill up the fuel
Yeah.
of the um, of the cars, the
Mm-hmm.
company cars. So there you need liters,
Right. Right.
or what is it in America?
Gallons in America. Yeah.
Gallons.
Yeah.
So the liters you need for the consumables, but you need for the petrol station as well.
Mm-hmm.
So they will be used multiple times, the same unit. So I thought in this way, it's like a configuration table, a single configuration table which has all the units,
Mm-hmm.
and which can be used wherever we want in the application.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Wanted to talk that one through because there's lots of ways that you could
Hmm?
implement this, and in fact, units and dimensions and metrics or measures, observations. These are all ideas that are in Martin Fowler's book, Analysis Patterns,
Okay.
that you'd pointed me to. So yeah, I started reading that,
Hmm?
and
Ah,
so he goes deep into measures and all the different ways that you could um, you could model those, and all the
well,
pros and
I will
cons of
have a
those
look
different
at
ways. Yeah,
I will have a look at that chapter.
yeah. Yeah, because one of the things that this does not capture is dimension. So you've got liters and you've got cubic feet and or cubic meters. Still thinking in U.S.
You mean
Yeah,
length, height, and depth? You mean?
yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, dimensions is in a distance would be meters or feet or inches or centimeters or
Hmm?
so those would all be units of distance. Then units of volume would be liters or cubic meters. Um,
Hmm?
uh, then a dimension of weight, a dimension of time, um, and subdividing
If you
things
say
according to
the
dimension.
dimensions of a box, the
Um,
dimensions of a box.
yeah, yeah. The way that he uses the word dimension is really kind of a grouping of units. So all these units are convertible to one another. So distance is a dimension. It doesn't matter if it's length,
Hmm?
width, or height. Um, it's distance. So you can convert meters to centimeters to millimeters. They're all different units, but they're all units
Hmm.
of distance.
Okay.
So, so yeah, I could see a model in which you say that this particular consumable, a fertilizer, is always measured in the dimension of volume, and so you get to pick whether that's cubic liters or not cubic liters, cubic meters or liters or gallons or
Mm.
whatever the unit might be.
Okay, so then you should still make a kind of collection where you say this is dimension of volume with all these values below it.
Possibly, if you think that's going to help the application. That way, you can attach that to the consumable, and now when you are assigning fertilizer to this task, the units that show up in your dropdown are only units of volume. You can't say you know 10 meters of fertilizer. That doesn't make sense. So if you want to filter it further, that
Yeah.
it's not just used for consumables, but this is a unit of length or a unit of volume.
It's a good idea. Let's see how far we get with this.
Yeah.
And the next step might be to make these collections of application.
Mm-hmm.
But
Oh,
so
bless you.
we have these units. Type of work, I didn't do anything. Type of leave, there we are not yet. Then we get to task again.
Mm-hmm.
I think the explanation I changed a little bit. So task can be created by a dispatcher for any work or by the worker himself, or by the worker for himself only. There are mutable properties, of which schedule is not yet implemented. We can attach one worker, one client by an entity reference pattern, or multiple tools, multiple yards, multiple consumables with a membership pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Yard name, yard address are no longer stored as successor of tasks, as their historic value is irrelevant for the tasks. That's what we discussed last
Yes.
week. So I think I did that one. Did I add it already? I don't remember. So we have it was already in the period pattern.
Yes. Yeah, I remember talking about that last week.
Yeah. I called it activity period, I think, or worker period last time. But it's kind of confusing. So what I did now is use the name of the fact, the predecessor of the period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I will see whether that's
I think that makes
more
sense.
consistent.
Yes.
But so we have this period by year, by month. Then we have the task. The relations I didn't rework yet. We can delete, we can restore. And then there were remarks and description. I renamed them because I think task instruction, the task feedback, is clearer.
Okay,
An instruction is given by the dispatcher, and the feedback is the return from the worker.
Yeah. Yeah, that is more clear. Yeah,
Because otherwise, description and remark is a little bit who fills out what.
Right.
But in this way.
Yeah.
And so then we have this task client, membership pattern, entity reference, singular, task yards membership pattern with the delete possibility, the tools membership pattern with delete, and here we have the consumables. So also membership pattern, and then we added the amount to bring. For the amount I used a decimal. and I have the unit
Yeah,
here.
there's the unit. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I think that comes together
So
nicely.
that's a mutable property.
Yeah. Yeah, so you can change the amount to bring on
Yeah.
the task consumable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then you can delete that consumable from that task, but you can still keep the others. Yeah, they're
Mm-hmm.
independent. I like that. Yeah, yeah, that works.
Okay. Then I had the supply period. Now I have the worker period. And then we have task worker, which is an entity reference,
Mm-hmm.
which is the link between the task and the worker going through the worker period.
Yes.
We also have task is done and task is done deleted.
Yeah.
And if we look at all that,
Yeah.
where's my,
It was
yeah,
such a nice little willow tree. Now it's getting bushy.
you haven't seen the whole thing yet. I still have to shift it a little bit, or I cannot change it here. Okay. Yeah, it's getting
Yeah.
a big thing now.
Yeah.
But you still see the task is in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, with the
Um,
supplier right above that. Yeah, that makes sense. And then the
yeah.
the supplier period being that mediator between the two,
Mm-hmm.
so that
So we have
tasks.
here the supplier period, and we had the worker period here to the left.
Mm-hmm.
So then the task worker is the membership between the two.
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think this model, we still need the work hours, the leave, so type of leave, type of hours.
Mm-hmm.
But with this model, I want now to go back to .NET and make the application work with this model.
Right. Yes, that makes sense.
So then we can complete this assignment dialog.
Mm-hmm.
That was working before, but that's probably not working anymore now. So, and once that is finished, then we can add the number of hours, but the number of hours have to be added from the smartphone, because right now it's the dispatcher who is defining the task.
Mm-hmm.
And the number of hours that has been worked, that is the worker. So that's a completely different role.
Right. Right.
So I think for the moment, this should be enough to continue in .NET.
Yeah. 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 Then this will give us enough of the dispatcher interface that then we can switch over to looking at the mobile application and
Yeah.
start to see tasks over there. Yeah. We'll need to put a replicator in between to synchronize them and set up the authorization and distribution rules for that replicator.
Then we get to the real stuff.
Yeah.
The real Jinaga stuff. Let
Yeah.
me see what I wrote down. Okay, so the task feedback, task instructions, the consumables, the filtering. Oh yeah, so the approved pattern for the tools. Yeah, we don't see it. Oh yeah, I also added the entire model.
Oh.
But that's
Well,
a big mess.
yeah.
That's a big mess. So I will have once I could start from that one to rearrange it manually with the colors like I did last time.
Mm-hmm.
That would perhaps not be bad. But so here with the tools, see the tools here, tools approved. But actually this approved pattern, I should also implement it for the yards, for the clients, for the consumables, for the tasks. The units, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't think a worker should define his own unit.
No.
But he could add his own clients. He could add a new yard, things like that. So
Okay, yeah, I hadn't considered that. I thought that
um,
clients and yards would still be for the dispatcher exclusively.
what I see right now with customers is they arrive at a certain place, and for example, the street name has been changed.
Ah, okay.
It doesn't happen often,
Mm-hmm.
but it does happen. And then you should have the possibility either to change it, but the problem with the change is that I have no way to mark it as not approved. So I think a
Right.
better way is that he defines a new yard at that moment with the correct address, and then it's up to the dispatcher to modify.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Or is
actually just talking with somebody else who reached out on Discord. We were talking about change requests, um, and I think what's emerging is an update to the mutable property pattern that seems to fit here. So the change request is a request from some user to change a particular mutable property, but you don't actually use that property in the change request itself. You refer to the prior, as in the existing leaves of that property. So this like in this case, the yard address is the mutable property, and the worker could create a yard address change request. So that points back to the yard, and it points back to the change request facts that are current at that time. And then the dispatcher could see all those change requests, and in order to complete the change request, they would make the change to the mutable property, and then they could mark that change request as closed. If they wanted to, if it was important to the model, you could say it was approved or denied. You could have comments on the change request, or you could even, this is one direction we were going, you could even have the approval refer to the new version of the mutable property. So change request approved, and this was the change itself. But yeah, in our case, we decided not to go that route. It created a weird little apparent cycle. It's not truly a cycle. It's kind of like prior itself looks like it's creating a tiny cycle, but it's limited to just one fact type. And of course, it really creates a tree of those instances. But this would be a reference between two fact types that makes a weird little cycle on the diagram.
if
Yeah.
you would say every version of the mutable property has an approved successor,
Yeah,
and as long as it is, that would be another solution.
Yeah.
So instead of making a request, the worker changes the mutable property, so he adds a new fact, but there is no approved on it.
Yeah, and that has the advantage of being able to write the specification that the worker can themselves see their changes. So to the worker, it looks like I've just changed the address and it's there, until it's declined, and then you would have a declined fact that you would use inside of that specification and then make it go away. But yeah, so that's advantage there. Disadvantage is that the model,
a lot of approved facts.
yeah, basically everything that the distributor does has an extra approved. They just auto approve their own changes.
Mm,
Um, yeah, versus just keeping change requests completely separate from the mutable property.
mm.
All mutable property changes are just from the dispatcher, and then change requests are just from the worker. And now they just become a communication mechanism. Um, they're,
Yeah,
um, there's some causal link between the two of them, but it could be it for the most part should I think be one way, but there might be a good reason for two-way causal links. I don't know. I think this is another one of those cases where you've got this catalog of patterns you can choose, which is
mm.
going to be the best for your model.
I think that's exactly what I need here.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah. So we're collaborating on that now asynchronously. We just met yesterday online and kind of talked it through. But
Mm,
yeah, now we've transitioned to just kind of going back and forth with some files, and um, so yeah, I think
that
once we
mm,
settle on that, I'll document a few of the patterns that emerge from there, pros and
that
cons, get
came
those
from
documented.
your team at Improving that was using Jinaga?
No, this came from a viewer of the YouTube channel, and so he reached out on Discord. In
Mm.
fact, right there in the general channel, um,
Oh, I should
his
have a look.
his screen name I believe is ReplayX2. But
Mm.
yeah, so we met uh, yeah yesterday online and kind of talked through the problem that he was trying to solve. And
Okay, so
yeah,
he's using Jinaga in a real application.
uh, he's not. He's using historical modeling, um,
Mm,
and he's part of a team where the team is not using historical modeling. Instead, the team is
mm,
trying to solve synchronization problems. Um, and so he's currently at the point of look, people, there's a solution to this, um,
mm,
and and they're currently at that point in the negotiation where it's like, yeah, that's too complicated. Um, this solution that we're coming up with is much simpler. We just have a small number of log tables, uh, and then we're copying current state into the next log.
mm,
So it's uh, it's the same sort of patterns that you usually end up going through until you discover that there are problems with those patterns. And sometimes those
mm,
problems are important, sometimes they're not. Um, most of the time, I've seen that you don't think they're important until they are, and then you're like, well, we've already gone down this path, so now we need to to test our way and tweak our way into something that works. So he's pushing against that momentum right now.
mm. Okay, but that's good news.
Yep.
That's another person who thinks about how to improve it.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Mm.
So
Okay,
yeah.
so I will look into that for instead of the approved pattern. Um, then a question for the units.
Mm-hmm.
How, if I would like to store a display order,
Mm. That's a tough one. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. I can tell you something that doesn't work terribly well. So if you've ever used Azure DevOps, um, they've got a property on every work item called stack rank, and
mm,
every time you drag and drop, stories or bugs or um, whatever epics in your in one of your boards, it changes the stack rank of whatever it needs to in order to get them to sort that certain way. Um, and so when you look at history, and that stack rank affects every board that work item appears on. So you drag something on one board and you flip to another, and it's been rearranged in the same way on another one, which may be what you want, may not be what you want. Um, And then if you look at the history of any of the work items, you'll see that so-and-so changed the stack rank to, 3,757,000, this huge number. Because it's just, when you drop things in, it just adds a large number to the stack rank in order to get the next one, so you've got gaps. Um, and yeah, it messes up history. It doesn't quite work the way you want it to, and mouse slips happen all the time. People are just kind of scrolling through, and then they drag something and say, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that," but you've already put this ugly stack rank thing in history. Um, so that's something that doesn't work terribly well, at least for large lists like that. But maybe it'll work better for a small list. Maybe it's worth a try. Um, so to do that, you would have a mutable property that is your stack rank, um, and then when you wanted to reorder things, you would change the stack rank of just enough of the units to get the effect that you want. And there are algorithms that you can find to tell you what that minimum change set might be.
Okay.
Um, another idea is to have an explicit order. This is, yeah. So I used this idea in the code launch application. That in the code launch application, it's important to know which of the finalists occur in which order, because they're paired 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and then the winners go on to the final round. And so order really matters. And so when you create a finalist fact, order is just a property of that fact. It's part of its identity. So yeah, changing order would be changing the identity. And that works for code launch because a finalist is the relationship of a startup. I think I used the word startup. Yeah, a startup with an event. So when this startup appears at that event, they're a finalist, and so they get ordered at that point. And yeah, if you were to change the order, that's a different finalist fact, but it's still the same startup. So you still can preserve history from the startup down. So that works there. That might work here. Yeah, so, which is kind of similar to the stack rank, except you're using it not as a mutable property, but as
The identity itself.
an identity. Yeah. And then an even stronger declaration of this is the proper order might be that you've got one fact that has a string encoded representation of the list of units, and so you and then you have mutable property pattern of that entire list. So now when you rearrange things, you are just creating a new property, a new value for that list. And so now you query for your units, but then you cross-reference with that list to see the order in which they should appear. And that has the advantage of being really consistent, because that's the complete list. There's no ambiguity. Whereas stack rank, you can change the stack rank of one item without changing the stack rank of another, and that would have a certain effect, and they're not causally related to each other. So yeah, that's a difficult one. I'm not. I think
So
for units I might go with the third.
But so the third one is a string of pointers, actually.
Yeah, so the issue with doing that in Jinaga is constrained to JSON, and so any field that is an array has to be an array of predecessors. That's what that's what arrays mean in a Jinaga fact. Um, and so if you were to say like an array of strings, then you wouldn't be able to serialize that in Jinaga.
Mm.
Um, maybe at some point I'll change that because it could look and say array of what? Array of string. Okay, that's okay. That's fine. That's a value. Um, but uh, um, but yeah, right now it's you would have to convert that array of strings into one string. Just JSON serialize that array. Um, and then if you wanted an array of references to the unit fact,
Mm.
then in Jinaga everything is a set, not a list. So order is not guaranteed. So you can serialize that out, but then when you pull it back, you might get those units
Mm.
in a different order. And that's all because um, I think by accident it might actually work. Yeah, it's not a thing that I planned for, but now that I think about it, um, the serialization protocol is that you serialize the fact is a JSON object. Oh, okay, I know why it wouldn't work. Um, but yeah, so you serialize the fact as a JSON object, and then you also serialize all of the edges as different objects. Um, so the edge is a reference to a predecessor and a role.
Mm.
So so the reason that it wouldn't work in Jinaga is that you canonicalize the JSON serialization, so that two things that would mean the same thing actually convert to the same string. So it's a canonical JSON serialization. And so one way that I do that, since arrays are sets in Jinaga, is that I convert each of those predecessors to a JSON object that is just ref. I think the field is called ref, and then the value is the hash. And then I put those into the array, and then to canonicalize it, I sort those alphabetically. So they're alphabetically sorted by the hash, which is not the same order that you put them in. And then, of course, find distinct because they're a set, so I don't want duplicates in there either. So that canonicalizes it, which means that no matter how you constructed that fact, you would get the same hash.
So then with that string, the third method, how do you use that in Jinaga?
Yeah. So Jinaga would just see that as a string. Then your application, when it's so maybe that would be the a JSON encoded string of SI units. So open square bracket quote CM
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
And then in your application, you fetch that and you fetch your unit facts, and then before you render anything, you order the units based on the index of the SI in that array.
Mm-hmm.
So you just use that
So
array
yeah,
as the function.
so you're using the content of the fact as key in the array or in the string to sort.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see
So
what we can do there.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Now that I think through that, that does seem like seem pretty complicated. Maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe we should just play around with all of them. That might actually be a really good stream, is to just, okay, this is what it looks like if you do it this way, this way,
Mm-hmm.
this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as is the theme of this stream, pick the one that's most important, that's more representative of your application.
Mm-hmm. I had one last one. Remember that I said
Yes.
last time WinMerge.
Oh goodness, yes.
That WinMerge was allowing me to compare versions of Notebook
Uh-huh.
much easier than Git.
Yes, yes.
Why is that? Very, very easy. Because Git is comparing the content of the file.
Mm-hmm.
And WinMerge, what I did was just copy paste in WinMerge what I saw. For example,
Hmm.
here my notebook. Why is it not scrolling? Yeah. If here in this notebook, I just do Control A. Oh no, I have to be, for example, here in this side. Right, I'm going to make it bigger. Perhaps he will, because he needs to take all my facts at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's not taking them. If I click here, yeah, look, if I'm in a markdown fact,
Mm-hmm.
I do Control A, select all, he's selecting all this text.
Oh, okay.
And if I paste that inside WinMerge, so I open WinMerge, I have my tool panes. Let's give a small demonstration. Make it a little bit smaller there. Stop sharing, and then share WinMerge. This one. I'll make it a little bit smaller, perhaps. So this is WinMerge, probably an old version. It's a new document, and it gives me two panes here.
Mm-hmm.
So just now I did Control A in that virtual machine.
Mm-hmm.
Then I do, wait, why is it now not selecting everything? Yeah, now I have it. Control C.
Mm-hmm.
I go, for example, in my right pane, and I do Control V, paste.
Mm-hmm.
And what do we have now? For example, here
Ah. Oh,
we
look at that.
have the header task.
Uh-huh.
We have the explanation. And we have the facts.
Yeah. It just switches.
Yeah, so
Yeah, with no
everything,
break between the markdown and the.
but everything that we see on the
Mm-hmm.
screen that is displayed, we paste it. But the underlying code in the
Right.
file, we don't paste it. The number of executions, the engine, all this information is not there.
Okay.
And so what we do now, we compare the relevant items. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
For example, let me paste the same thing
Yeah, so now there wouldn't be any differences.
in the other one. And then, for example, I would change here this first sentence
Mm-hmm.
in something else, and now I click on refresh.
Mm-hmm.
You say, okay,
Yeah.
these two paragraphs are different, and all the rest is exact.
Okay. So do you
So
have this this flattened file somewhere in the repository? Or do you just you use WinMerge? So I'm about to start, so let me paste, and then after you're finished, you paste in the other one.
for the moment, I just did it copy paste. So I didn't store the flattened file in the repository.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I told you I was surprised that WinMerge was working so well, but I didn't think about it. Then I went back. I say, of course, it's working well, because it's only the relevant information.
Got it. Yeah.
While Git takes all the formatting code and
Mm-hmm.
all the things that we are not interested in.
Yeah.
Now, how to? It would be nice that if we look into Git, that Git filters out all the irrelevant things before comparing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it would be. Yeah. I wonder if there is any kind of a Git custom diff mechanism. Yeah, that is worth looking into. And then if there is, see if somebody's already solved that for Polyglot notebooks.
In fact, you should have a kind of pre-hook.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
You could do this with Git hooks. Yeah. So something that would strip just the parts that you can see, put those into a different file.
Mm,
Um, whenever you add a an IPYNB to your index, it would
mhm.
also update that too and add that.
Well,
Yeah.
not sure whether you should store them. At the moment that you do a diff between two files,
Mm.
before displaying them,
Oh, okay.
have a hook at that moment
Okay.
between
Hmm.
the reading of the file and the display. Kind of filter that you.
Yeah, I don't know if there is a hook that fires at that point, but yeah, that is worth looking into. Yeah,
Because
that would be
that
really
makes
helpful.
life much easier.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, the diff format is exactly what's used for the merge algorithm. So
Mm,
yeah, the diff format is not just to show to the user. In fact, I think that's probably accidental. The primary use is this is instructions for a machine to say,
yeah.
go to this step, part, replace these lines with those lines. So um, so yeah, if you were to change the diff to make it more human readable, then it wouldn't be it wouldn't work as a a set of changes to an IPYNB file.
That's indeed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That is.
I like to use it to see what have I changed.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. Visualizing it definitely makes a lot of sense.
mm,
And so far, we haven't experienced any merge conflicts on IPYNBs, but I
mm,
imagine they would be just terrible.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So I did actually last night push a few more changes to the autofac after you had merged. So sorry about that.
Okay,
But
no problem.
um, yeah, I completed the using creating factories for the child view models. So there
Mm,
were three child view models that were um, you still it was still using the new keyword inside of the parent view model to create the child view models. So I said, okay, replace those with factories, and then I took a stab at making the unit tests read like Gherkin. So factored out some helper methods that yeah, that are I named given and when as the first word of those helper methods. So given a supplier, when the modal is shown, then uh, you can test the properties of the modal view model. Um, so so yeah, give those a look, and if you like them, merge them in.
yeah,
Um,
we'll have a look at that.
yeah,
So AutoFact, I'm getting used to it.
good,
But
good.
so far it seems a very nice tool.
Yeah, yeah, I really like that. Structure map
Mm,
is also a really good one, but AutoFac works really well um, for view models because you need to create child
mm,
view models all the time. So just automatically create this factory function.
mhm.
Yeah.
So from my side, I will start in .NET again, and then the changes to the model for the approved, the new approved pattern. I will leave them out for a while, because otherwise I will never be starting in .NET again.
Hmm.
um,
Yeah.
Once everything is working with the new model, then we can go the next step
Yeah.
and try to implement this approved where the worker can request for a change
Hmm.
and the dispatcher can approve it.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and hopefully next week I'll have some work on the change requests
Mm.
patterns. have those documented.
Okay.
We shall
Then
see.
I can test them out straight away.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, yeah. This is coming along. I really love the the kind of conversations that this is bringing up about different options for modeling things. There's no one correct way to model things, but um, all of the models, all the patterns have to follow a basic set of rules. So it's just whatever you can do within that set of rules that matches your intent of your application is the right thing. So I love this.
And I think for the moment, the development of an application is taking a lot of time, but that's only because we are discovering the
Mm-hmm.
best way.
Yeah.
Once all these patterns are documented, and once the user interfaces and the tools that we should use, everything is documented, then it should really go fast.
Yes. Yes, yes, and that would also be a good time to start bringing in LLMs to help with the coding, because once you've got the documentation of the patterns that you want, it can follow those patterns really well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah. Every time I try to use an LLM on this project, it just goes crazy and says, "I'm going to go in this direction." It's like, that's not the right direction. Come on back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
excellent.
I had a friend of mine who is not a programmer at all, but he's very good in 3D printing and
Mm.
all this kind of servo motors and all this. And he needed some software. So he asked ChatGPT to make something.
Yeah.
And then he sent me the source code. Jan, can you have a look whether it's all right? I don't know in which language it was. I said, look, I even don't know the language. So I cannot say like that if it's all right or not.
Mm-hmm.
Next time we will try it out, I told him. But
Yeah.
apparently, ChatGPT gave him a suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
but whether it's working, I'm afraid not.
Yeah. Yeah, it takes a certain skill, and I've been working on building that skill to guide the LLM to a good solution. Um, so yeah, some people are really good at it. Yeah, it just comes naturally, kind of like good searching. Other people it takes a little bit of exercise. Probably for everybody, it takes a little bit of exercise, but they 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 seem like they just get it. But yeah, the vibe coding thing, it's really just people getting good with understanding what the uh, what a prompt is likely to get right and get wrong, so that they can stay themselves in good prompts, and then even if they're not reviewing the code, true vibe coding is not reviewing the code at all. Um, but even if they're not reviewing the code, getting a feel for what the effect is, and okay, what the next prompt might need to be, that's in and of itself a skill. Um, and it's not just it's just vibes and feeling good. Um, so yeah, I prefer to use AI assisted software engineering. So I'm asking it to do a security review, to review the performance characteristics as it sees here. What are options for scalability? Yeah, how can I make this easier to maintain? And then write those to a markdown file. And then I'm just going to sit there and read the markdown file. If it makes a huge misassumption, then I'm just going to reprompt it and say, no, you missed this. But if it's a small thing, I'm going to edit the markdown file. So then I get that pattern exactly right. This is the way I want you to do things. And then when you go back and you say, now code to this, and you give it a small chunk of work, it stays on the rails much better. So
Okay.
yeah, I think we're going to be able to get there with this application. So can maybe
But it
do a
will
demo of it
not,
in a few weeks.
for programmers, it will be interested.
Mm-hmm.
For non-programmers,
Yeah, yeah,
they will
yeah.
have
Vibe
to wait
coding
a
is
little
not
bit
there for
longer.
non-programmers. It's just creating a mess for yourself if you're not used to evaluating code. Um,
Okay, great. I have something
Very
to
good.
work on for next week.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, then I will see you then.
Okay. Michael, thank you very much and
Thank
see you
you.
next week.
See you then. Bye.
Okay, bye bye.